it depends on kind of where you fit within the hierarchy of your organization, and kind of what duties that you're there to discharge, right? If you're usually a director, right, or a senior manager, or have aspirations to get to that point, you absolutely will need to learn and stay abreast of all the legal and regulatory requirements when it comes to protecting data, whether or not it's personal data or healthcare data or credit card data. There are so many legal requirements when it comes to the protection of data that that these days has made up the life of cybersecurity directors and people kind of at that senior level. Now, why does this matter? Why does it matter that you know or understand the distinction between the two of them? Well, it starts with, you need to understand kind of which side of the fence you're walking on, but also absolutely maintaining that you have, if you're in an organization that has two different departments, you both must be tightly interwoven together. You must have clear lines of communication between the two because of all the overarching issues of privacy and cybersecurity. They go hand in hand. And this is where good cybersecurity professionals really are worth their weight in gold, because they will be able to give proper and adequate advice to the C-level as to where some of their boundaries are and are not, right? Especially depending on certain industries that you may be working in, for instance, like telecom industries, credit card industries, federal agencies. There are some extremely critical legal implications associated with violation of or unauthorized access of private data. So that is kind of, I joke with my bosses sometimes that I'm not sure when it happened, right? From the time I went into school, came out with the shiny new degree, got to work, started doing whatever I was doing at the time, and now where originally I was just going to be a network engineer. I wanted to build and design networks. And then the security part just kind of took over my life, because as more and more breaches were beginning to happen, the ability for me to just be a network engineer kind of just faded into the background. But when you look at some of the critical skills that cybersecurity professionals have to have these days, you can kind of begin to count them up and then wonder, why they continue to ask for more and more money, right? You have to be abreast of all, legal and regulatory requirements. So you almost need a little paralegal degree to go along with all the rest of your training and certification. Depending on, kind of what your career track is, then you have to start getting into project management and program management, which, it generally is not, or had not been, at least when I was first coming out of college, an integral part of the program. But now I have to be, a program manager or a project manager, being able to calculate ROI and the ROSI, return on security investment, and labor management, right? All I wanted to do was build networks, but everything else just kind of took over. And I found the more I learned about these other areas outside of the bits and bytes of things, the more successful I became, right? So this is just one more of those areas that, especially today, it is well advised you pay very close attention to how some of the privacy laws and the privacy protection laws continue to change and mature over the course of time. So I have a poster on my wall that says "Words Matter," right? Now, this is part of the fact that I am a product of a mother who was an English teacher, right? And she always used to tell me words mean things. And so be very careful with the words you choose because they mean things. And in this particular area, this is absolutely something, an area that rings true, right? If you're in the United States, you typically hear things called privacy policies, right? Whereas over in the EU and some some of the South Asia's, North Africa's, you will hear it often referred to as protection policies. And is there really a difference? Well, kind of is really the best thing I can offer you. But they do seem to intermix terms, right? You'll hear the same thing in some of the US codes when it comes to a privacy policy that you will hear as you review some of the EU codes, but they're referring to it as a protection policy. Now, when I started doing a little more pushing into, okay, why the mixture of terms? Why can't we all just simply agree on what fits in what bucket? It really started to come down to the attitude that the governments have towards individuals and towards business. So a privacy policy, more the reason why it's encouraged as a privacy policy in the United States is because the by and large, the government currently, and has been for over 100 years or so, is very pro-business. So it's all about telling the business what they have to do to limit their exposure, right? So they're trying to limit their exposure and how private data is stored, collected, and transmitted. However, as you move over to the EU, most of the EU governments are very pro-consumer or pro-employee. And so even though they're using a lot of the same words with a lot of the same identifiable ends, it really does come down to the government making sure to put very strict standards on how the business will protect the consumer, how the business will protect the customer. So that really, as I started tearing it apart and just doing some research over the years, that really is the most discerning difference between them. And kind of how I've always kept them, ever since then, kept them straight, right? When I hear protection, I think, the EU and very consumer-based, right? Very employee-based. When I hear privacy, it's very business-based, right? In the EU, for instance, I've done some work, over across the pond and things like non-competes, right? Non-compete clauses and non-disclosure type things are a lot less prevalent as they are here in the United States. In the United States, we use a lot of non-competes and data disclosure documents to keep things private within an organization. So you can see in just that instance, that little compare and contrast there.